This is actually a Balinese Keris. And this is how the Balinese handle the Keris. It's important to know how one's handle the Keris, because normally when people see the Keris, they see it as a poking object. They think it's for poking purposes, but it's not. It's a weapon after all. So there is a certain manner of using it.
Basically, if you look at the moves, much of it is stabbing, and the Keris is basically a stabbing weapon. However, there is also a use for it as a slashing weapon, and also to hack. And if you go later to the exhibition, you will see an example of a Keris that has evolved into a sword.
The Keris is a special weapon. It's both a sacred and a weapon of mass mystery. I think it is an enigma alone. In fact, when one talks about the Keris, it is a subject that most people do not understand. It is so mysterious that in Malay weddings, there are some cases where they refuse to use a real Keris because they think it has magical powers and it has a lot of demons inside. And no, if I use it, something bad will happen to me. Something bad. That happens often, right?
Quite often, really, because many Malays themselves have a very, they have a lot of lack of understanding of the Keris itself as a cultural object. So there's a lot of just different wrong perspective on what the Keris is, and that brings about fear. And that's something which is extremely bad because it's a cultural object. It shows the history and cultural development of the Malays, the civilizational development of the Malays. We will talk about it later, Hindu, Buddhist, and Islamic aspect to the Keris. So that is what basically we're going to show you today.
But the Malays didn't start off as Muslims. So there were other traditions that we were largely influenced from, and we'll see all this later on. So our talk today will be broken into 6 parts. We will introduce to you again the Yayasan Keris Singapura or Singapore Keris Foundation, and we will outline the concept or our premise, and then we'll talk about animism, Hinduism, Sufism, before we end for our Q&A, question and answer. So, Mr. Swami, can you introduce to us?
Right, the Yayasan Keris Singapura, the Singapore Keris Foundation, that's a big name. It's actually, in fact, a small club of very dedicated people who not only collect the Keris, but also go all over the region within Southeast Asia, to Indonesia, to Malaysia and so forth, to find out about the Keris, its history, historical development, and the philosophy behind it and so forth. So we started off in around 2008, and what you will see later is basically a lot of collection from us, our own personal collection. So here in Singapore, you are very unique. We are very unique in that in the houses of our members, you have practically a mini museums, each and every one of us. Basically what we do is we will base what we have on the core tenets of what we do. It's based on 3 Islamic principles of knowledge, which is the ilmu, the faham, and the hikmah. The ilmu meaning the basic understanding, the basic knowledge, the basic underlying content of what the knowledge is. And the faham is basically the understanding of things which are deeper within just that basic underlying principle. And from the last will be the hikmah, basically the advantages that you are able to derive from those understanding. And we have gone overseas, and we are, although a small group, well known within the Keris fraternity in Indonesia and especially in Malaysia, because we have interacted a lot with the people over there. And many people will be surprised to know that Singapore, with all its wonderful technology and so forth, do have a dedicated group of people who are actually well versed in the Keris, something which is extremely traditional. And the knowledge that we have, we share it with the members of the public in a way that many people, even in Indonesia as well as Malaysia, do not do. We go to schools, we go to community centers and so forth, and we bring out our own personal collection.
So a concept. So we are going to talk about two things here. This is the Keris. So this is for you to give to have a general understanding of the Keris. This is a Javanese Keris. And we seem to have a lot of Javanese collectors already. So I'm sure they'll be proud.
The Keris, or Keris, is a distinctive asymmetrical dagger from Indonesia. Both weapon and spiritual object, the Keris is considered to possess magical powers. The earliest known Keris go back to the 10th century and most probably originate on the island of Java before spreading throughout Southeast Asia. Keris blades are usually narrow with a wide asymmetrical base. The sheath is often made from wood, though many are made from precious materials such as ivory or even gold. A Keris owes its aesthetic value to three elements. The dafur is the shape and design of the blade, of which there are some 40 variants. The pamur is the pattern of metal alloy decoration on the blade, of which there are approximately 120 variants. Lastly, the tangu refers to the age and origin of a Keris. A bladesmith, or empu, forms the blade from layers of different iron ores and meteorite nickel. In high-quality Keris blades, the metal is folded dozens or hundreds of times and handled with the utmost precision. Empus are highly respected craftsmen with additional knowledge in literature, history, and occult sciences.
What's interesting was, I think there was a part where he actually used his bare hands to touch the blood.
Keris were worn every day and at special ceremonies, with heirloom blades being handed down through successive generations. Both men and women wear them. A rich spirituality and mythology has developed around the Keris. Keris are used for display, as talismans with magical powers, as weapons, sanctified heirlooms, auxiliary equipment for court soldiers, as accessories for ceremonial dress, indicators of social status, and symbols of heroism.
As you can see, the Keris is a very special and unique object. In fact, to the Malays, if for example a guy wants to marry a girl, and the guy happens to not be able to make it for the wedding because probably he has to go for reservist perhaps. So maybe he has to go for reservist. He can actually the Keris can actually replace him. So in fact, he doesn't have to be there. So you can go to Mandai camp or wherever camp, but your Keris can be there.
This tradition actually started off hundreds of years ago. In times of war, in times of crisis and so forth, where the male the groom himself will not be able to be there. The Keris has been used to replace the groom himself, I mean. But of course nowadays we do not actually do that. The groom is required to be present. I mean, he'll be sorry if he's not present.
I think because if you go to ROM and the ROM sees a Keris, the Keris cannot talk and the Keris cannot sign. So yes. So what makes a Keris? There are actually five points to look at. The blade has an asymmetrical structure. The blade is constructed in an angular manner. In fact, yes, it's actually constructed in an angular manner. Can you show?
Yes. It's asymmetrical. The base is white on one side. You'll be able to see this later when you go to the exhibition. You can hold the crate itself, right? And this is the tank, the part of the crate that joins the crate to the heel, and not like a knife. It is not straight. It is at an angle. So these are the distinctive, a few of the distinctive features of the crate.
It has a short, rounded tank.
The short, rounded tank allows the crease to be easily changed. So the heel can be moved to accommodate a left-hander and a right-hander. And when you put on the crease, there are certain protocols, for instance. So if I want to meet the king, I will not be using my crease in such a manner. What I will do is I will turn the crease like that. Like this would mean that I'm ready and could be used as an assault weapon. So in the past, the king's guard, upon seeing a crease which is like that near the crease, near the king, would consider it as basically a declaration of intention to hurt the king, and will therefore protect him accordingly. So if you go to meet a king, it is like that, or you simply take it and turn it aside.
It is a double-edged blade.
Both sides are sharpened. On both sides.
And the last one, it features a broader crosspiece, the ganja.
The base of the crease is actually detachable, right? There are those that are not detachable, but largely it is detachable. There's a symbolic reason for that, which stretches back all the way from the time that we were Hindus and Buddhists and long before we were Muslims. And there's a lot of mystical value to that. We will go into that deeper later. But the ganja, the one that is being referred to here, is the base of the crease. It is detachable. The crosspiece here is detachable from the main blade itself.
And there are many types of Keris in the region, and this just some of the types. So this is from Bugis, Palembang, Malay, Bali, and Java. So this is the Bugis Keris.
You'll be able to actually see, feel, okay, for yourself what these creases are. All of them are there. We have a single Javanese example, but a lot of examples from the Sumatran region, of Palembang, the Riau Islands, and the Malay Peninsula. And of course, the Buddhist pieces.
In fact, I think this is something interesting because I think just now someone asked me, how come there's a Keris in Philippines? So actually, the Malay region itself is white, and Philippines were once largely considered to be part of the Malay world.
Tagalog itself is actually a variant of Malay, and the Filipinos are considered as Malays, in fact. And basically, they have creases over there. Their creases are in the form of a sword-like weapon, which you can see later. We have them in the peninsula, but we can find it largely there.
So the origin of the Keris, the physical structure of a dragon, the build of the Keris conforms to the physical structure of a dragon.
It is said a straight Keris will be a dragon at rest. The head of the dragon will be here on this part, right? And the body of the dragon will then go upwards with the tail at the top. So a straight Keris is symbolic of a dragon at rest, and a Keris which has waves like this will be considered as a dragon which is moving.
And this is called the Sarpa Tampa and the Sarpa Lumadu. Again, this is something that will probably fascinate a lot of Malays because I'm also a columnist with Berita Harian, and I think just a few weeks back I wrote about Keris. I wrote about dragons in the Malay world. When people talk about dragon, when Malays talk about dragon, they assume, oh, maybe our dragons come from China or from Japan. But actually, no. Actually, we have our own dragons, and the Keris is actually one. It is actually symbolic of the dragon itself.
All right, just to return back to this photo just now. This is basically a relief found in Shanti Sukuk in Java. And basically is a representation of the making of a Keris. Alright, you have Ganesha there, And I'm not quite sure who the figures are, but some have said these are Shiva or perhaps two of the Pandava brothers. But whatever the case is, this is basically a mystical representation of how a Keris was done. Now, if you look closely, you actually see an animal down here. And it has been said that that animal is a representation of a sacrifice that is made when the Keris is being made to basically increase perhaps the spiritual aura of the Keris. So this has been dated to around 10th century or so.
10th century, correct.
Yes. So this is one of the earliest representation of Keris making in Southeast Asia.
And 10th century is way before the Malays adopted Islam. So Islam, I think the first sign of the Malays embracing Islam was in the 11th century. But then it only got popular in the 15th century. So this was in the 10th century, way before that. This is a picture of the Malays in Kelantan. As you can see, all of them actually have Keris. All of them have Keris. It's not possible to have that now.
This is a photo taken sometime in the early 18th or 19th century. And it is in Kelantan, basically. These are all Kelantanis. Kelantan is in the east coast region of the Malay Peninsula. So the Keris is being worn regularly by Malays there. But with the coming of the British and so forth and all that, the wearing of the Keris is actually has not been allowed to be done openly. But if you were to go into the interiors, right, of the Malay Peninsula and so forth, you'll be able to see this then. Nowadays, of course, we don't see it often. We don't see this at all. It is a crime basically to walk around showing a weapon.
So we are criminals. That was actually written by Li Sing. He was actually from China, of course. I think a lot of things Malay are not documented. So a lot of things Malay are not documented, and then it's left. So we have to depend a lot on oral tradition, and sometimes if there are documentation from other traditions, and then we have that. And also when Raffles came, he actually took away some of our valuable items, so we don't have it now. So the belief system, we started off with animism. This is interesting because the Malays, we believe in the concept of Pau Jangi. Pau Jangi is this very large tree. It is very large tree, and we believe that the whole universe, and this Pau Jangi is in the center of the whole universe. And under the tree, there's a large crab. And when the crab goes out, so the tides will go. There will be high tide and low tide. So this all depends on the crab itself. So there you go, animism. And previously, when we see trees, we say, hello tree, I love you, you love me. And we believe in trees. We actually revere trees a lot. And then there's also Hinduism and Mahayana Buddhism. So we were all Hindus and Buddhists way before this. This really depends on the region where you're from and whether or not you're from the palace and all. Of course, the last one is Islam. When Malays talk about Malays, what it means to be a Malay, a lot of them forget that Malays were once also Hindus and Buddhists, and they assume that Malays were Islams or the Malays were Muslims all along, but that's not true. And if you look at it, when Islam came to the Malay world, it didn't exactly radically change the Malays. No, it did of course bring about an effect, but the Malays already believe in stuff like Buddhi. The Malays already believe in stuff like heaven and earth, and all this heaven and hell, and all this don't come from Islam itself. There were other traditions that brought this to us.
When you talk about animism in the Malay world, basically it is an extended belief. It consists of animism, as animism is classically defined, as well as totemism. So basically what you have is a situation where you have a belief that each and every living thing, trees, grasses and so forth, even geographical features, mountains, hills and so forth, rivers, they have residing within them something, a spirit, what we would call as a penunggu, that which resides within, you know. And there is this overarching belief in an overall power, you know, pretty much similar to the power of ki or chi in the Japanese and Chinese tradition, feng shui in Chinese tradition. The Malays actually have this, and that is known as semangat. We'll go into that later.
Yes.
And Hinduism, all right, is still being practiced by Malays in Bali. And if you do go to Bali, you will see that, yes, the basic fundamentals of Trimurti, of Artha, Kama, Dharma, and all that is there. However, the way it is projected is totally different. It is different from what you would see in practice in India itself. Right? So that is a good reflection of what Malays were previously, before the coming of Islam. And of course, Buddhism. In Palembang, we had a university there hundreds of years ago, where people from China, China, Korea, and so forth would come and study there, a sort of a bridging course before they actually go to Nalanda in South India. Well, first and foremost, they have to basically understand Sanskrit, so they would learn Sanskrit in Palembang. So the Malays have this tradition of intellectualism in spiritual matters. And like Jai said, the Malays were not like the Quraysh people in the Hijaz, where they were very backward in their spiritual understanding. So when Islam came to Islam came to the region, the Malays already has a deep understanding of very, very complex spiritual matters. And all of this you can see being reflected in the creed itself. Its structure and so forth conform to all these spiritual beliefs.
So animism, semangat, the soul of the Keris. A Keris is useless if it is without soul. So this is semangat. And there are certain, because of this semangat system, we don't use any particular type of wood. They don't use any particular type of metal. They don't go and take a look at, oh, this is stainless steel, so this may be very good. No. There are specific metals that they use. So because to the Malays, they believe every life form has a soul of its own. Every single thing, if this is a chair, the chair has a soul of its own. In fact, I think Maurice Merleau-Ponty, he's French. It's actually a philosophical theory of phenomenology. And when they were talking about, everything has a certain phenomenal, has a certain phenomenal body. But the Malays have that. We've always had that. But we don't say it's phenomenal. It's actually, we call it semangat. And an understanding is required to create harmony. And if you look at the Malay architecture, we don't use any kind of wood. If we use, if for example it's kemuning. Kemuning is a wood that is so rich that we used to believe that it's only meant for royals. So if it's kemuning, and then there are specific kinds of stuff that they make with kemuning. They don't take any plywood and then go make a house. No, we don't take ramin wood from any place. No, there are specific woods, and in fact the Keris itself, they also believe there is also a certain school of thought in 7 pa or 7 pa, meaning they will actually take stuff like paku, which is nail, payo, everything that begins with pa, 7 of it. They will collect everything and then they will make everything into a Keris. So not every metal can make a Keris, not every wood can make a Keris.
Basically, the Keris is not just used as a weapon, it is also used to basically enhance a person's aura. So for instance, as an example, if you go to make a Keris in the past, the Empu will basically look at you and ask you, when's your birthday, when's your father's birthday, blah, 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 and so forth. And from there, he basically comes up with something which is specific to you. So for instance, if he were to read to you, and if I may use an analogy, you are somebody who is able to have 70 cc of aura, and you have only 40. So he will create a Keris that will basically up your cc power so that you will get the full 70. So you use that specifically for you, your aura will be there. Now, what will happen if that Keris is being used by someone else? So if the Keris is meant for somebody with 70 cc of aura, and it is then stolen by somebody with only 50 cc of aura, that Keris is believed to be able to bring bad luck even death, sickness, and so forth, not only to the person who stole it, but also to the family and all that. So in the past, that was very, very significant. And a keris as a weapon is not only as a weapon that is being used to stab or slash and all that, but it exudes a magical aura, sakti, to be able to basically defeat your enemy, all right? Without even touching him, for instance.
Yes. This is again something interesting. Have you guys heard of the Tameng Sari? How many of you guys have heard of the Tameng Sari? Have you guys heard? You've heard of Tameng Sari. Wow. Okay. Tameng Sari was believed to be Hang Tuah's weapon. And I got this largely to research because I was talking to this Bomo.
And Hang Tuah is a legendary warrior from the old Malaccan Southland.
They probably never existed. Well, they are, in Malaysia they are saying maybe Hang Tuah is Chinese and all. And there are many school of thoughts. Again, but back to the keris. There is a school of thought. The Hang Tuah's keris, the Tameng Sari. The Tameng Sari is actually a cursed weapon. They believe it's actually cursed, and it's not. It doesn't have good semangat or it doesn't have good luck imbued in it. No, they believe that yes, it gives certain power. Like if you are holding on to the Tameng Sari, nobody can ever hurt you, nobody can ever kill you. But they believe that this went way back. I think during Ken Arok's time. During Ken Arok, this is in Majapahit. Ken Arok, Empu Gandring was one of the best keris smith around. So apparently, Ken Arok said, "Make me a keris," and then Ken Arok was impatient. So the keris never really materialized into a complete matter. So it was a curse. So this Bomo was saying that to get rid of the curse, Majapahit has to give away the keris to someone else. And so in the end they gave it to Malacca, and in the end that was why Malacca fell. But that is one school of thought. But again, Malays, there are many different various versions of stuff going around. Like there's the Hang Tuah and the Hang Jebat. And in fact, that is one school of thought. Actually, there are also people saying actually the thing about Hang Tuah and Hang Jebat never existed. It was between Hang Tuah and Hang Kasturi. There are many versions.
Basically, the Tameng Sari keris is a mystical keris that was basically given to Hang Tuah when the Malaccan Sultan at the time married one of the daughters of the Majapahit king. So what happened was that there was a duel between Hang Tuah and Tameng Sari, a warrior of the Majapahit king. And what happens is that, maybe you pause this for a while, Jack?
It's keris,
Okay, so what happens is that Hang Tuah was able to kill Tameng Sari the warrior, and the Tameng Sari keris was then awarded to him. So that is one of the belief that the Tameng Sari keris was actually made for Tameng Sari itself and not Hang Tuah. And when Hang Tuah got the keris, subsequently you have a lot of unlucky events befalling him. He was accused of being a traitor. He was subsequently sentenced to death. And then that ended up with him fighting his best friend and blood brother, Hang Jebat, and him killing Hang Jebat, and so forth and so forth. So there is that aspect of the belief. Now what you're going to see basically here is a video of a keris that is purportedly mystical, that has some magic to it and so forth. This is actually a lot of BS because later on you'll see that there's actually a string down there. We can't see the string, all right? But beliefs such as these are still prevalent, and that scares people off, scares the Malay off. And rather than keeping the keris and understanding it and respecting it for what it is, they are just leaving it by the side.
So there you go. This is a keris moving, dancing. There's no song, so but it's dancing. Actually, if you see, I think there's a nylon there.
The belief in the keris having something placed inside a spirit or demon and so forth that allows it to basically be manipulated like this is very prevalent. But if you know a bit of engineering, physics, and so forth, you will see later that this is not true. You notice, there you go, see the string? Yes. And what will happen is that the keris will then start to move and twirl. So beliefs such as these are still prevalent. And because of this, Malays believe that in order for you to become a good Muslims, you cannot associate yourself with demons and genies and so forth, and therefore, let's all throw away the keris. Which
is sad, I think, because there are a lot of Keris collectors in Singapore who are not Malays. In fact, I think some of the best Keris around, they are not in the hands of the Malays. They are in the hands of we have Chinese collectors, right?
Yes, we have Chinese collectors, Eurasians, Indians, and they do have a very deep understanding of the Keris and an appreciation of it.
So, right now, we're going to have something special. We're going to have a Silat performance. You know what Silat is? Silat is a Malay self-defense system. We're going to have a Silat performance together with the Serunai. And then you'll see how a Keris is used. At the moment I stepped there, the mic was actually whistling. So that was his aura. That wasn't because of technical error. No. So there you go. Just now, as I mentioned, that was a Tari Keris. The Tari Keris is rarely performed. It's rarely performed nowadays. I think because in weddings, actually Malay weddings they have Silat, but they do not perform the Tari Keris. So this is actually a rare glimpse of the Tari Keris alone being performed. But every different group has its own Tari Keris. They have different ways of using the Keris itself. So part 4, this is Hinduism and Buddhism. Through Hinduism and Buddhism, we begin to believe in the system of yoni, lingam and karma. So this was actually a relic found in the Srivijaya Empire.
This is the feature of the Keris that I was talking about just now. Now, the ganja is the crosspiece that you see on top, and the tang is known as the puting in Malay, or basically it is the place where you will attach the Keris to the hilt. So what happens is that you have a rounded hole within the ganja itself, where it is then slid into the tang, the puting. In Javanese it's called a persi. So basically, this is a symbolic union between man and woman, with the puting being the lingam symbol of the male sexual organ, and the opening of the ganja as the female part, the female sexual organ. Therefore, when you add them together, there is a kind of harmony being created on the Keris itself. Why this is so, nobody knows for sure. My own personal hypothesis about it is because of karma, perhaps. You carry a weapon all around you, that's not good karma to have, because it is a weapon. Therefore, it projects a very aggressive, negative energy. Therefore, when you have this symbolic joining of man and woman, all right, so you have a more better, positive aura being reflected. So then you have a balance of karma there. So going around with something which is balanced like that, your karma will be much better. Karma basically is a belief in the order of life, the order of things, right, throughout the universe. And the other aspect of it is also believed to be the symbolism of Shiva, because Shiva is the Lord of destruction as well as creation. So you have the Keris as a weapon with the blades and so forth, as a weapon to hurt, to kill, to injure, and the symbolic joining of a man and woman as procreation. So the symbolic representation of Shiva on a weapon.
And if you look at the Malays believe in a system of 9 akal dan 1 nafsu, or they believe that a man is made up of 9 parts brain and 1 part desire, whereas a woman is 9 parts desire and 1 part brain. Oh, maybe that's not true. Please do not attack me. So, but basically they say for a person to be perfect, he has to have both 10 parts. So a man is not perfect until he gets married. So when you get married, the union between man and woman, and then there's 10 parts. So you have 10 parts brain and 10 parts desire. So when this 10 parts balances up, and then only you have a perfect harmony. So because of that, it is actually also represented.
It is basically a symbolism of passion as well as intellectual leanings. So basically, in the past, the idea of woman not being as clever as a man. So basically, when you have the man and woman coming together, then it perfects them, both of them. So that is basically symbolic, the symbolism that you also see reflected in the creed itself.
So the last part, or second last part, Sufism, the wind of change.
Now, Sufism is basically, if you ask people in the West, they will say, this is Islamic mysticism. But if you ask the Muslims themselves, they will say this is a deep spiritual aspect of Islam. Sufism has a very strong following and attraction to the Malays in the past. Why? As I said before, the Malays in Southeast Asia were not like the Quraysh in the Hijaz region. When the Prophet first preached to them, he had a problem because they were very materialistic in their understanding of the world. They do not understand the spiritual world and so forth, and therefore many rejected him because of that. But for the Malays, it's totally different. They are already imbued, the culture is imbued with a lot of understanding. In fact, words that are used in propagation of Islam now, words like shurga, neraka, which is basically hell and paradise and so forth, did not come from Arabic, but basically from Sanskrit. And dosa, pahala, all these are also from Sanskrit. Buddhi, pakarti, Sanskrit. And all these are deeply rooted in Hindu as well as Buddhist understanding of the way of life and basically spiritual philosophy. So when Sufism came, basically it found a fertile ground because the Malay wanted something more, something spiritually more enhancing to them. That is why Shiaism, the belief in the Shia strain of Islam, as well as Sufism, were more popular to the early Malays than what we have now, which is the Ahlul Sunnah. So basically, Sufism also therefore has a lot of influence on the nature of the creeds, the forms of the creeds, and the belief in the creeds itself.
So through Islam, images of gods and demons evolve into more symbolic representations, incorporating floral carvings. Like just now in the earlier video, you see there is a Balinese crease, and it shows a god, a demon, stuff like that. But we don't have that in Malay crease because it has evolved.
In fact, in Bali, the Silat in Bali, they would basically venerate their founders and so forth by making statues and all that, which of course is not practicing Islam. So when Islam came, that is to change. And what you will see here is one of those changes that has come to. The images basically of gods and demons and so forth have changed, have evolved to something more symbolic. So here what we have is, this is most probably Raksasa, alright? And basically the Raksasa here is seated on some a lotus leaf, right? So that has evolved into the bird form of the hill. Now this is from what we call this Palembang, right? So what you see here are the incomplete representation of what you see there. So there are various interpretations. Some Muslims will say you cannot totally represent any human form or animal form. But there are those who say no, so long as it is incomplete, it is not 100% perfect, it is okay. So if you see here, you see the hand, but it's not a complete hand. You don't see the legs at all. And what you see here is the face that is devoid of many facial features. So something like this will be considered as acceptable, and you will have many of these. But you will also have some which are totally evolved into totally non-humanistic form. But in effect, these were in the past human form, and it has been changed and evolved into something like that. And if you look at the grace proper, here itself, this part, okay, which is called the Gandhic area, if you look at it from this way, you will actually see a human face. Alright? You see that, man? Yeah? You will see a nose, eyes, mouth, the features are there. Right? So these are the ways and means that the Malays root themselves in their culture, root themselves in their philosophy, but still accept the influence of new ideas, spiritual ideas and philosophies that come. And all these are reflected in the Keris itself. As the Malay evolved, because the Keris itself is a cultural object, the Keris evolved together with the beliefs. So if you lose this, you lose that understanding of what the Malays are. Right?
And this is one of the Malay forms.
Now you will see a lot of them from there. The carvings that we showed. Now these are floral in nature. Now it is said that these floral carvings are very, very representative of Islamic principle. Now what happens is you will always have one source where the floral tendrils or leaves and so forth will project from. And it will basically spiral inwards, and it will always have that form, the external form will come back to that one source. So basically that is a philosophical representation of Islam, where you always start off from that one source, which is God. And then regardless of where you go, you'll come back to that one source. And that spiral motif that you see in Malay carvings, you can see here, the spirals, and there too, is a symbolic representation of the person and the bowing down or submission to the will of the one, which is God. So this is how basically the Malay incorporate new ideas, new influence of Islamic philosophy into their art form. And this is an art form. Although the basis of it is as a weapon, the art form is there. And the philosophy is there.
So Swami, yesterday I think I had this one particular girl. Hello, yes, I'm looking at you. She was asking me about the Jawa Demam. Jawa Demam. You know what's a Jawa Demam? No. Jawa Demam. Jawa is Java, Javanese. Demam is fever. So they're talking about the Javanese people having fever. So this is funny. This is actually one of it. What happens is, maybe you want to talk about the Jawa Demam.
What was the question?
Why Jawa Demam?
Okay, there is a form of the Keris which is called the Jawa Demam. Jai has shown you there. I will basically, yeah. This is the Jawa Demam. It is pretty close to what you see here. This is in fact a form of a Jawa Demam. So basically, what you see here is a look of a person, alright, as if he's having fever, hugging himself and bending down. Alright? So that is what is called as Jawa Demam. Okay? But now, some people are now saying that Jawa Demam is not actually Jawa Demam. It can in fact means Jawa Demam, okay, or Dewa Sejuk, which basically harks back to a more ancient idea and representation of what this is all about. So if you were to basically go back to the root of Hinduism or Buddhism and so forth, this is basically an evolved way of showing a Raksasa figure, a demon figure, or a god figure onto the Keris. But with the coming of Islam, it has been changed and so forth, and many people say this is a representation also of a Muslim at prayer, basically holding his hand here and bowing down, which is basically part of what a prayer is. So that is the basic philosophy. Now whether it's right or wrong, we do not know. Much of this knowledge has been lost, and it's only now that we're slowly trying to unearth it. But if you need to understand what this is, you have to really go back deep into the past.
Yes, you have to go back. Okay, again about the Jawa Demam. Like I said, there are various school of thoughts about it. And ideally, a Muslim will not go to your face and say, you look ugly. No, we won't do that. So, what happens is, there's a school of thought that says that the Malays have gone through a lot of wars. And among these wars, we've also fought the Japanese. Unfortunately, we have never won against the Japanese. So, one way to mock the Japanese is through the Jawa Demam. They believe, since we cannot make, since we haven't won the Japanese, so let's make fun of them. Let's mock them. Let's mock them in a way that we do best, which is carving. Which is in a way that we do best, which is carving. And this is actually something psychological. It's actually psychological to overcome these things.
A school of thought which believe that basically this is a subtle mockery of the Japanese. Because in the past there is this power play between what you see now between the Chinese and the Americans. So then you have the Malays represented by the Malaccan Sultanate and the various Javanese kingdoms and even the Javanese Empire, which was on the wane at the time. So all this interplay and so forth influences the Malay. So there is a school of thought that says that is a symbolic representation of mockery, making a mockery of your enemy in a subtle way. With Sufism, there also comes a belief in the Dhikr, the Wafa, and the Azimat. Now, all these are basically a belief amongst the Sufis. Now, what is the Dhikr? Dhikr is basically an incantation of specific words or names. For instance, that of God's name. Now, God has 99 names, and each of these names represents a certain power of God Himself. God Himself. And therefore, if you were to chant this name of Him, you will basically have certain advantages being given to you. And therefore, it is believed that if during the making of a Keris, you were to chant this, or if you were able to basically include the actual writing of the name into the Keris itself, the Keris will be imbued with that aura. So it's either written in Arabic script itself or a representative of the Arabic script, as you see here. To make a Keris in Java, there are still users of the mantra, which is basically right now a mixture of what was practiced by the Javanese hundreds of years ago and with Islamic practices to its civilization. If you go to the Malay Peninsula, there is more leaning towards the practice of Sufism. So Malay Keris maker, a Pandai Keris, will have to go through what a Javanese would go through. The process of mutihat, to cleanse himself. He will basically perform a fast for several days, usually odd number days, and he will then basically make sure that he doesn't take part in any sex. He basically doesn't eat certain type of foods and so forth and all that, and he will perform special ritualized prayers, specifically so that he is basically in tune and in harmony with the desire, the objective to actually make a Keris. And right from the very beginning, when he does that first knock on the red hot metal, all that desire, that aspect and so forth is transferred from him to the Keris. He will actually mumble or will say certain prayers and so forth. And this is believed to basically vibrate with certain aura, and that aura will then go into the Keris itself. So that is the belief. So strong is this belief that a Keris should never ever be taken and pointed at someone. Because if you do, there are many people who believe that that person will actually be affected in some ways. I have seen this myself. Now, I'm not actually, I don't believe in mysticism and so forth, but I've seen some of this effect. Some Malays, some people, even non-Malays, when you're actually looking at a Keris and the Keris is pointed at them, they get very anxious and scared and so forth. To me, that's all psychology. But who knows, who can say, right? And there are stories in the past. I had a university lecturer from Japan who told me that they were doing a drama, and while they were doing this drama, they were actually using pieces that they borrowed from the museum. And after using it for only a few shows, they returned it back. Because the person who was wielding that real actual Keris stated that whenever he took the Keris out, and he acted being angry and aggressive towards the other player, he actually felt himself very angry and aggressive, but he were almost overwhelmed by his desire to go to that person and really do it. So that is basically the belief that if the Keris is used as a weapon right from the word go, even before that first note is done, before that, the focusing of the energy, the focusing of the attention and so forth by the priest maker, the Pandai priest, into creating a specific weapon for a specific purpose, for a specific person, and then actually doing it. So all that while, all that energy, aura, vibration, is semangat and all that is basically coiled inside him and then transferred to the priest and then used by the owner. So up to today, there is a lot of taboo against the priest. Do not step over the priest. Your testicles will become bloated. Alright? Don't take the grease. A wife is not supposed to take the grease and point at the husband. Neither should the husband give the wife, because that will cause many bad things to happen. And if a grease doesn't belong to you, don't take it without the permission of the owner. Because what will happen is that not only will you fall sick, it is believed that even the family will be affected. Quarrels and so forth and all that. Okay?
So Malays are very patient people. So if we go to McDonald's and the order is taking a long time, we believe that the person maybe is doing dhikr inside. Maybe that's why it's okay. Maybe he's fasting inside. They're meditating, it's okay. Well, okay, but seriously, for that reason, the keris isn't a primary weapon. It is a secondary weapon. So because of all this semangat thing going on, so the moment if I take out a keris, the keris must kill someone. It's either I kill you or you kill me. So either or. But then is, of course, it really goes what type of keris it is, whether or not it's a keris for a warrior class keris, you know, that kind of stuff. Wafa.
Wafa is basically alphabets, symbolic representation of each Arabic alphabet is believed to have a numerical value, and they will also be given a symbolic representation, and this will then be combined in certain ways and so forth, and will then be written on pieces of cloth or written on a piece of wood, and in this case written on a weapon in order to enhance the sakti, the magic, the aura of the weapon, for whatever reason, as a weapon itself or as a means, a charm, a dulak charm.
So this is conclusion. This is a very short conclusion. So appreciation and understanding of a keris cannot be separated from a critical understanding of these beliefs and practices. Some people say, okay, no, I'm just looking at a keris because it's beautiful. I like a keris because it's beautiful. But no, you want to take a look at a keris, you must have a basic understanding at least of how a keris comes about. All this is important, and a deeper and holistic evaluation of the keris can only be derived from a critical understanding of the evolution of the belief system of the Malays. The keris is something unique. Like I said earlier, the keris itself is a representation of man. For you to understand a man, how a Malay looks at the world, the Malay's worldview, it is enough just for you to look at the keris. The keris is more than enough for you to look at the Malay worldview. In fact, the keris, there's so many, like I said, there's so many different types of keris. Just now I was showing you just by the region themselves. But every region has its own type of keris. There are so many variations, and it's not possible for us to show them all. And of course, we would like to invite you later on to see and touch some of the keris that we have.